Hi class, welcome to Motor Learning. It's Movement Science 202. I'm recording this video for both sections, so whether you're in the section 02 meeting at 9:20 or the section meeting at 10:25, section 003, welcome. Just the first thing I want to point out is how we're going to do the lecture schedule. Because my daughter is starting kindergarten, but not totally starting kindergarten, she's only going to be in school on Thursdays and Fridays. I can't do a full Monday, Wednesday, Friday synchronous schedule as much as I would like to. So what I'll do is I'll post videos for the Monday and Wednesday lectures ahead of time. And if it helps, I suggest this just to keep some sanity with the schedule, is to watch those videos at the Monday and Wednesday class time or before, so you don't get behind. And I say I'll post them by 9 a.m. on Monday and Wednesday. Typically, it's going to be much earlier. Typically, it'll be the night before at the latest. I put the 9 a.m. there in case I have any technical difficulties with YouTube. All right, and then starting next Friday, not this coming Friday, I'll have synchronous lectures on at your normal class time on Fridays only. To make up for one of the things I really like about teaching is I can kind of answer your questions as I'm going along in the lecture. Since I can't do that for the Monday, Wednesday lectures, I'm going to have a shorter question and answer section. It'll be basically the second half of class on Wednesday for section 2, so 9:40 to 10:10. And if you're in section 3, it's going to be 10:25 to 10:55. So the first half of class, basically. And that's going to start not September 2nd, but September 9th. We don't need hopefully you don't have too many questions about the syllabus from today. But if you do, feel free to email me. All right, so if we ever go to in-person, that synchronous lecture on Friday will turn into an in-person lecture. These room numbers may change, but this is what they told me in early August, right before we decided to go fully remote for the first month of the semester. So my office hours are, these are going to be virtual office hours, of course, for the first month, but they're going to be Monday and Wednesday from 3 to 4:30 in the afternoon, and also by appointment. So if those hours don't work, don't let that stop you from talking to me if you have a question. I really encourage students to come to office hours. It helps me often figure out like what topics are confusing to students. All right, so the course description, this is the same thing that's on the registration website. So I'll go into not too much of the details of that. You've hopefully already read it, but we'll talk about factors affecting motor learning, as well as the methods that needed to improve skill development. That's one facet of motor learning. And yeah, what we'll do is ways to examine motor control abilities. I don't know if you'll have the same access to technology that you would if it was a fully in-person semester, but some of the technology we use is pretty low tech. The first lab I'm assigning, all you need is a ruler or a yardstick. So pretty cheap piece of equipment. Something that is not cheap is the textbook, and that is partly why I'm telling you can use the 2017 edition, which is the 11th edition. If you can find that used, I highly encourage you to do it. The publisher just came out with a new edition. They changed less than 10 pages. So basically, they're just trying to take your money with a new textbook, but they haven't really made very much new. So I say I'm going to give you both chapter numbers, but the chapters are so close to identical. Like when I give you the class schedule for the whole semester, in a couple pages, you'll see that they're identical. So either of those is fine. I would encourage you to use the cheaper 11th edition if you can find it. We'll use Plato for this class. I will post whenever I post a lecture on YouTube, or I have the Zoom link for a synchronous lecture the next day. I'll put those into an announcement in Plato that will get blasted out to all your emails. Same thing with PowerPoints. So I primarily use PowerPoint for my lectures, and I'll give you the PowerPoint slides. And also same thing with assignments. Those things will all go into announcements that I put on Plato that all get emailed out to you. And because I check that little box so that they will all be emailed to your Westfield State email addresses, I try to keep the announcements to a minimum, no more than like 3 a week, if at all possible. And that's, so I'll put multiple things in one announcement. All right, so if you want to get in touch with me, campus email is the best way to do it. You can see it right here. It's usually I get back to you within 24 hours during the semester, sometimes a little bit longer on weekends. All right, so just some rules for the online lectures, the synchronous lectures on Zoom. My policy, I'd like for students to keep their cameras on. That just allows me to see if you look confused or not, so I can try to give a different explanation. I'll post a brief Zoom tutorial this week about how to use a virtual background. So like if you're worried about, the professor's going to see that my room is a mess. First of all, I really don't care. This is my room. It's my unfinished basement office. It's pretty bad. Of course, the video froze right then, but you can just use a virtual background. I don't use it because if I need to demonstrate a movement in a virtual background, if I try to move my arm, like I don't know why I would demonstrate that movement, but my arm just disappears into the background, so you get to see the back wall of my basement. During these synchronous lectures, I really encourage you to ask questions as they come up. You'll want to mute yourself. I want you to mute yourself when you join the lecture, just so I don't hear 20 students worth of background noise. But when you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask. Especially with remote classes, questions generally make the class go better. If you're confused about it, someone else probably is as well. So always feel free to ask questions. All right, so I kind of glossed over the course description, but I will talk about the course objectives a little bit more. By the end of the semester, you should be able to differentiate between motor skills and motor abilities, describe the anatomy, physiology, and motor control theories that are underlying motor control and especially motor learning. Explain the roles of all senses, all types of sensory feedback, right? Attention and memory in motor learning. Distinguish the different types of motor learning and break down the stages of motor learning. There is some overlap there. Sometimes when you get to a different stage of motor learning, you're no longer learning by correcting errors. You're learning by some other type of motor learning, right? And we'll get into that later in the semester. A big part of motor learning, as you might guess, is practice. And there's different types of practice. And there's also different types of feedback that a coach can, or a scientist, if you're doing experiment learning a skill, can give you. And those different types of practice and different types of feedback will often affect how well the motor skill is learned. All right, so we'll also talk about relating the science of motor control to practical situations, like teaching people how to do motor skills, practice of motor skills. And lastly, you'll integrate your knowledge of motor learning into a practical setting. So I'll have more details on the project when we assign it a little bit later in the semester, but whether you're able to meet in person or not, the project is to teach someone else a motor skill. So at the very least, you'll develop a lesson plan for that project, even if you're not able to fully carry it out. And even if we go back to in-person, there'll be social distancing and all this stuff, and it's quite likely that we don't that we're not able to do that project to its fullest, but you'll still do a lesson plan, and you'll still do a you'll still have a presentation at the end of the semester. All right, so this course takes a lot of involvement from every student, so you're expected to buy the textbook or at least rent it for the semester and read the textbook and study outside of class. I give my kinesiology students a much longer version of this talk, but basically in high school you're in class for about 30 hours and maybe you get 15 hours of homework. At least that's generally the expectation. In college, you're only in class for 15 hours, assuming you take, let's say, 15 credits. And it's kind of flipped around. You're then expected to do up to 30 hours of work outside of class a week. So that means, like, for a 3-credit class, don't be surprised if you have to do 6 hours of work in a week. And if you don't do any work in a week and you try to get that 6 hours times 3 or 4 weeks, try to get that all crammed in right before a test, that tends to not go well for people. So I encourage you to like take class very seriously. I give learning objectives at the beginning of each set of lecture notes, and so those are the main things I want you to study. And also the lecture schedule, which is right down here, I tell you the corresponding readings. And I will say, so again, you can see the chapter, whether it's the 11th edition or the 12th edition, it's the same chapter. So I basically put the same chapter number twice for everything. But you may say, oh, geez, there's 6 chapters in exam 1. There's some aspects of each chapter I'm not going to go into. For example, we talk about measurement. They talk about transcranial magnetic stimulation. I'm guessing that most, well, I'm not guessing, I can pretty much guarantee most PE teachers, physical therapists, occupational therapists don't have access to that because it's a really expensive machine that does transcranial magnetic stimulation. Basically, it sends magnetic waves through your head, and it can temporarily disable certain sections of the brain. You don't need to know. It's pretty safe though. Things tend to be very reversible with that, but you don't need to know a lot about that or some of the other expensive measurement technologies that are in Chapter 2. So the tests are primarily going to be on the topics that I cover in the lecture, but the book goes into more detail on those topics than I can in 50 minutes. So the book is still really essential for the course. All right, so I won't go through these in all detail. I feel pretty confident that this course schedule before exam 1 is going to be pretty consistent. I don't have, again, I don't know if we're actually going to go in person in October. I would hope so, but if you've read the news, various colleges are having problems with COVID outbreaks. So, of course, safety is the primary concern. So, Massachusetts has done a pretty good job of handling COVID. So, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can come back in the fall. But it's more than likely that at some point this exact schedule is going to change some. And I'll post an updated syllabus, and I'll again email you, let you know the syllabus has been updated, if and when that happens. All right. Other things. So you will have projects, and I'll ask you to present them. There's 20 of you in each class, and the class is 50 minutes. So the presentations will be like 6 minutes a piece. So it's not, you're not going to have to give a great oratorical speech for an hour or anything. But presentation skills are important, so that will be part of your grade, about 5% of your grade. All right, so there'll be 3 exams, there'll be a few labs, and these will not be labs most likely where we're doing in-person experiments, unless that becomes possible towards the end of the semester. There'll be other assignments. I put minute papers here. Minute paper is basically, I'll give these for some of the online lectures. I might break up the lecture into 2 separate videos on YouTube that are maybe 15 or 20 minutes a piece, instead of having like a whole 40-minute lecture. And at the end of each of those, I would pose a question that you'd write a little bit about. Those are going to be mostly graded just based on effort, and are you trying to answer the question that is asked. And that'll be a small part of your grade. There may also be homeworks. Class participation will be a portion of the grade. If we say online, that's going to be attendance to the synchronous online lectures. If we go to in-person, I'll talk about attendance more in a minute, but if we go to in-person, participation is going to be properly following all the guidelines about wearing your mask the right way. I'm not going to let you in class without a mask if we do go to in-person. The grading scale is pretty standard for all of Westfield State. If I deviate from this grading scale, it will be only to help you. For example, like if you get a 92.5, that's probably going to end up being an A, not an A minus, unless for some reason, half the class gets between 100 and 93. Then I reserve the right to make a 92.5 an A minus, but that's never happened before. So where half the class gets an A without any curves or anything. So, but yeah, if I go away from the grading scale, it'll only be to help you. A couple other things to point out. The final exam will be cumulative. There will be, you notice in the course schedule, I have mental practice coming after exam 3. Anything that's after exam 3 will be overrepresented on the final exam. But there will be a cumulative portion to it. Okay, late assignments is an important point to make, because if assignment is turned in late, day late, an hour and a half after class, later than whatever deadline I post on Blackboard, you lose 20% right there. Each additional day that it's late, so if you don't turn it in the next day, but if you turn in the day after the next day, you lose another 10%. So the easiest way to do a lot of work and still fail a class is to turn assignments in late. Even easier way to fail a class is to not turn assignments in at all. If you're sick, email me the assignment or turn it in through Play-Doh. That's not really it doesn't really apply for the first month when we're all online, right? That's what you're doing anyways, is going to be turning in assignments through Play-Doh. All right, just a few more things. The attendance policy is going to be for the live Zoom classes, the ones I'm doing synchronously. When you join the Zoom lecture, type hello into the chat, and when you leave the class at the end of the Zoom lecture, type goodbye into the chat. When I close out Zoom, it always gives me a copy of the chat saved, so that's a really easy way for me to take attendance. Let's see. If you're missing class for any reason, let me know as soon as possible, beforehand if at all possible. And I'm usually pretty good about excusing absences. I'm reasonable about things, particularly about illness this semester. If we do go back to in-person and you feel sick, you have a fever, you have a cough, you have any symptoms, you're losing your sense of taste, whatever, symptoms that would suggest COVID, please do not come to class, okay? I will record it for you. I'll give you the PowerPoints. don't risk infecting people with COVID, right? That's like the worst thing that could possibly happen in the class. So that's the reason why, if we go back to in person, I'm not going to use attendance, in-person attendance as part of the grade. Zoom attendance, sure, but I don't want people to feel any pressure to come to class when they're sick, when you could spread a life-threatening pandemic, right? If we go back to in-person class, no cell phone usage is permitted. If for some reason I'm doing calculations on the whiteboard, that's unlikely to happen in this class, but you can ask if you can take a picture, and I'll usually let you take a picture with your phone. Other than that, no cell phone usage. You need a laptop, of course, for this class, especially true this semester, but you may still want to print out the notes so that you can keep up writing on your notes and follow along with my video in Zoom. All right. You may need a calculator for this class. If you need a calculator for an exam, I will let you know well ahead of time. I put this in here in the syllabus kind of just in case. If we meet in person, no food or drink, particularly if we're in a lab. We may use the biomechanics lab for an experiment if we can go in person. Again, similar to my thing in online classes, please ask questions in class, but don't be disruptive of class otherwise. Appropriate classroom behavior, no talking during lectures unless it's a discussion part of the lecture or you have a question. Just, don't be disruptive. I haven't really had any problems with that with students here at Westwood State. Hopefully I continue to not have problems. Similarly, academic dishonesty. I don't tolerate cheating and plagiarism at all. I'm fairly young. I can catch plagiarism of electronic sources maybe better than some of your other professors. Don't do it. It's like, if you do it, you're at the very least, I'm going to give you a 0 on that assignment. You can definitely do better than a 0, right? So just don't plagiarize. If people are plagiarizing or cheating on tests, I take that pretty seriously because it reflects poorly on all the students who actually did the work and try to get an honest grade. So I do my best to throw the book at you. But again, hopefully we never have to have this conversation again related to this class. If you have any issues with the class, let me know first. I will try to resolve it with you. If you can't resolve it with me, and again, this has never happened, but then you could go to Dr. Rausch for further advice on how to handle disagreements with me. If you need academic accommodations for any documented learning disability or whatever, if you're getting extra time for tests, let me know, let Bonacos know, and they will let me know. I do what they tell me to do. If you need accommodations, it's best to figure out as soon as possible. Don't tell me the day before the test that you need extra time on the test. Other campus resources, I put this at the bottom of the syllabus, frankly, because it's not as important to this class in particular, but it's to let you know about resources around campus, as the title would suggest. So I won't go over all these. I'll just let you know one. If you're not aware, the Counseling Center is still doing things to support students via phone and video chat during this fall semester. And they do a pretty good job of providing resources via social media and also their website right here. I won't click on it, but it has a number of good phone numbers for hotlines for if you're feeling depressed, if you have issues with sexual assault, domestic abuse. That's a partial list. There's quite a lot of good resources there. I know this is a particularly stressful time. If you need help and you're not sure what to do, the website doesn't seem like it has anything for you. Feel free to talk to me, and I'll try to get you connected with the right people. Again, that's nothing to be ashamed of. So with that, I will say, remember the syllabus quiz that I'm putting on Plato along with the syllabus and this video very shortly. And good luck with that. Thank you.